Hey, what's happening, you guys? This is Coach Joel and Coach Emily, and you are listening live on the Proclivity Method. If you are on Facebook, if not, you're listening to the recording on the Proclivity podcast. And before we get started, let's tell you a little bit about Proclivity. If you don't know about Proclivity, we do one thing and we do one thing very well. We create healthier bodies and happier lives by harnessing the benefits of metabolic flexibility and the power of our words so that you can start living a life you want in the body that you love. We want to thank our title sponsor, 8 Sleep, who is the world leader of sleep performance and technology. They help you fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, so you can wake up more refreshed and energized every single day. If you don't know what 8 Sleep is, today is the day. Head over to 8sleep.com. If you like what you see, you can get a discount by using the code JOEL to receive $150 off your order. I'm with, as you know, my superstar co-host, Coach Emily. Coach, how are you doing today?
What's up? I'm doing really well. Thank you. How are you?
You know, still got those fires going.
Yeah.
Right?
Sad in that regard for sure.
Yeah, it is sad in that regard. We live in Reno, Nevada, guys. South Lake Tahoe is on fire right now. And we're just throwing up our prayers to everybody that's dealing with that right now. I know that there's a lot of stuff going on. Coach Emily, I'm really excited about today's podcast. We got our very first guest, and he's a killer. And he is a killer. We're going to be talking about how you train for life, because this guy knows a thing or two when it comes to training as a professional OCR. Do you know what that stands for?
I don't. I was going to ask.
Obstacle course racing.
Ooh.
I'm signed up for my first one in March. It's going to be on my birthday. Maybe I can get Dave to come down. We'll see.
It's exciting.
It's freaking, I'm stoked. So let's get this show going. I'm going to introduce to you guys the one and only Dave Robinson. As athlete and coach, Dave Robinson has long possessed a deep passion for self-improvement, has been guiding clients on their own personal development journeys for well over a decade. Dave now works globally with his clients by helping to create space, clarity, and developing consistent routines. Dave also focuses his coaching efforts on optimizing mindset, breath work, language, and natural movement. Without further ado, please welcome to the show, Dave Robinson. Dave.
Happy to be here, y'all. Thank you so much for the intro, and I'm excited to chat today.
Oh, man. Let's first talked about what's going on in our side of the country. What's going on your side of the country? Where do you live right now, and what's going on over there? Because we talked about it a little bit earlier today.
Right now, I live in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm putting out feelers. Richmond's a great town to live in. It's a wonderful town to live in.
Here he goes.
And I'm putting out some feelers to folks who are active in our community, probably many of your listeners, right?
For sure.
Come on out to Richmond. It's a great place to be. We're 2 hours from the beach, 2 hours from the mountains, 2 hours from DC. It's a wonderful spot. But we've got some weather coming through. Hurricane Ida, I believe it is.
Yep.
We're getting the remnants of that, not nearly as rough as New Orleans and Louisiana and that area, but we're on a tornado watch. So I'm looking at some interesting looking clouds and some pretty decent wind out the window in front of me right now. But we should be good to go. So I'm excited.
Well, the hope is is that we stay in contact, we stay connected. We're doing this all virtual, you guys. If you're watching on the Proclivity Method, you're seeing us live. If you're listening to us now, right now, everything's going well. And honestly, if anything changes, I'm just going to cut it and chop it, and you're never going to know any difference. It's only the folks that are joining us live. Virginia is an awesome place. I was over there, had the great opportunity to be able to ride with Dave from Richmond to the lake house, about 2.5 hour drive of us just chopping things up in the car. And one of the things that Dave introduced to me was a fantastic band that I can't get enough of. Oh, he already knows. Called Holy Roller. Guys, if you don't know Holy Roller, you get on iTunes, Spotify, whatever it is, download their album. How did you find Holy Roller?
It's a self-titled album too, which I always love when a band is so like sure that they're legit, that they title their album after themselves.
Yeah.
But this is a band that used to be known as Big Mama Shakes from Richmond, Virginia, and the lead singer looks like he's just born for rock and roll. Like you pass this guy walking down the street, oh my god, that guy's a rock band, gotta be, right? And I saw him play in a couple little bars here over the past 5 or 6 years, and they've grown quite a following here in town. And it is Southern rock and roll with soul and like I don't know how would you describe it? How would you describe it?
Oh man. My first experience was when you and I were sitting outside, I think shirts off, like beers in hand, barbecuing. And it's this like just, you could sit there on a dock or on top of a mountain or in a chair and listen to this whole album, just be like totally like kicked back. There's soulful moments where, and the lyric, dude, I'm jamming.
Storytelling at its finest.
It's
Storytelling at its finest.
Yes, it is. It is. Coach Emily, did I share Holy Roller with you?
You have not. I'll have to look it up.
Download the album, you guys. Do they have another album, Dave? Or is it the same one?
It's the same one. They were building up some pretty solid momentum, and then COVID happened, and they're playing their first show back. I'm going to be out of town, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
just one of those things. I hope it's the first of many shows back locally. Uh, you know, maybe they'll do a national tour one of these days.
Oh, dude.
The more we talk it up, the better it's going to be. So, Holy Roller.
Holy Roller, you guys get on Holy Roller, download their album, give them support, give them love. I don't know if they have a Facebook or an Instagram page. I'm sure they do, yet I haven't followed them. They're legit. One of my favorite bands of all time, and it didn't take long. Let's just put it that way. Respect. Dave, you just got done doing a Spartan. Not any type of Spartan, right? It was the Beast. You did a Beast.
Correct.
Where was that at? And tell us how that went. And I also want to know how you got into this.
Awesome. So the Beast, this past race was in West Virginia, mountains of West Virginia, kind of middle of the state. Had a lot of elevation, so it was about 4,000 feet of elevation gain up and down. So a lot of climbing, a lot of hiking / walking, fast. This was a little bit more than a half marathon, so 13.5 miles or so, 35 obstacles. Obstacle course racing is a mix of running, carries, monkey bars, ropes. You're throwing stuff, you're dragging stuff, you're crawling, and in my opinion, the best ones are done outside in gorgeous venues all across the country. And it's a combination of a lot of the things that I grew up doing, a combination of a lot of the things that I love to do. My mom I was joking with her maybe a year ago. And so I was starting to ask her like, hey, I remember being really active as a kid, but like fill me in on 1 through 5. Like what was I like really doing? And she said, I loved leaping and falling on the ground. It's
Yes.
just my like favorite thing to do. And like outside it was even better, but it was just like, spending time in nature. And so I I started, being an outdoor kid, a woods kid. I played soccer my whole life, still play. Um, got into powerlifting in college, and then fell out of fitness as I started to build a career in financial planning. Um, I got back into fitness basically coming off of a couch to one of these Spartan races. Not the beast, but the middle distance, right?
Hmm.
Still on a mountain, ton of elevation gain, very notoriously difficult course. And I got completely and utterly smashed and
Yes.
mentally, physically, and otherwise. Um, just shell shocked type stuff, right? Finished 2000th overall. No idea whether I would do it again. Hated it while I was doing it, and yet once I got done, it was one of those. Oh my god, that was great. I'm done. And it starts to get better the
Yeah.
longer the
Yeah.
time goes between the time that you did it and the pain that you felt and the joy that after you completed it. Um, but long story short, I did one race that year in 2013. Came back to the same venue in 2014 and did it again and did better. I was
Right.
like, oh wow, right? Like this is still fun. What if I trained for this? What if I like tried to get better at this and put some time, energies, and efforts into this? And the more that I started to do that, the more I got back into fitness. The fitter I got, the healthier I got, the happier I got. I did 3 races the next year, then 6, then 12, then 9, plus some other companies' races. And in between that, I set some big, unrealistic goals for myself and didn't put a timeline on it. I said, hey, I'm going to try to get it this year. If I don't get it this year, cool, all good. I got
Yeah.
better and it'll come. Right. And, um, looping that back around to this past weekend, had an awesome race. I went in with a plan and I executed it pretty much to 95% the way that I thought it was going to go. My This is the second biggest race of the year for me, so I wasn't really fully tapered to go into this, and that was kind of the design. I wanted it to be more of a training race.
Mm-hmm.
I've got OCR World Championships in about 3 weeks up in Vermont. And so this is like the last big, hard, real gut buster effort, long distance effort before that. And so it was perfectly timed. I gave it my all. I came out ninth in my age group, which I was pumped about,
That's huge.
and went camping with 3 or 4 of my really, really good friends and met a bunch of other people and just had a great time. So, uh, it's combining movement, breathing, being in nature, sun, friendship, fellowship,
Oh man.
betterment, all these things in like one activity slash
Yeah.
time frame, which is just so rad.
Yeah. Just all the things you absolutely hate, dude. I mean, you just
Yeah,
hate. You hate all those things.
no doubt, no doubt. No, if you're listening to this, don't go do any of those things. They're
Yeah,
terrible for
yeah,
you.
yeah. That's
Just kidding.
absolutely terrible for you. Yeah, I totally agree, and I'm really looking forward to doing my very first Spartan. I'm doing it in San Luis Obispo, Southern California. Emily's going to join me. She said that before the show.
Emily told me, she hit me up on Instagram before this and was like, "Hey, I'm going to do a Spartan with you in March.
Yeah,
It's going to be in SoCal." So, it's crazy how that works out. Yeah.
Emily, you're a runner anyways. Like you're perfectly fine. You give birth to a child. Go run a Spartan.
I'd love to.
I know you do. I know you would.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
She's in.
Live, you guys, live and recorded. It's in here.
That's great.
So you touched up on a bunch of different facets of all the things that you love about OCR, and the focus today is about training. Not only just training, but training for life. And what I want us to get into and this is going to be a really open conversation, guys. If you're listening right now, we're going to be bouncing all over the place. Yet you're going to get nuggets and nuggets and nuggets and nuggets here because you have three super high profile coaches that we're pretty granola. We like to put our feet in the sand. We like to take our shirts off, get sunshine. Okay, maybe we purify our water. Maybe we drink right out of the stream. Who knows? Okay, but y'all are about to get some high profile coaching right here. So before we dive into these different tips on training for life, how do you define training for you? And what does most society look at when we talk about training? Is that just like, oh, we train somebody for work? We train to do a 500-pound deadlift? What is that, and how can the definition of training be applied to life?
All great questions. I think the word training, you brought up great points. Training a new employee, that's for a period of time in the beginning. You put on training wheels, right? Like you want to take the training wheels off. You want to get on the big boy bike, the big girl bike, right? Like, I think training has a frankly a negative connotation. The way that I define training for myself is making a concerted effort to set aside time to better myself in a discipline or in doing something, right? Now, the cool thing is that because a lot of the things that I like to do, because they make me feel good or because they're just fun for me or whatever it may be, a lot of those things are considered training, though I may not be looking at them as training, right? Like if I have a great day outside, I want to go outside and walk around, like let's walk to the park, right? And so I could, maybe that's considered movement training, or maybe that's like I'm training, hey, it's hot, I'm going to take my shirt off, right? So now I'm not necessarily training for more vitamin D, but I'm getting more vitamin D, and and that's fantastic, right? And you've got to build up to that. If you haven't gone outside at all this summer, maybe don't go out there for 2 hours shirtless for, at the end of August, right?
Yeah.
You can build up to that point, right? And I think that's an important conversation. But the bigger picture, I think it would be an interesting thing to talk about. What if training continued, right? What if it's not, hey, you have this education, you have this training, and then at 18 you stop, or you go for 4 years and then now we don't learn, except when you start on your new job and you go to training, or you got to do your continuing education for 8 hours, every 2 years, right?
Right.
Like training should be ongoing. Training can be ongoing, and especially if it's something that we like to do.
Man, yes. I mean, talk about like a perfect description. I totally agree. And Emily, feel free to chip in on this as well. What we seem to face with the proclivity method and the people that we work with is, those hard chargers that are like training's a beginning and an end, right? You train to get 500 pounds, you get 500 pounds and it's over, right? You train to get to a certain salary, you get there and then it's over. And this process of what you were explaining there is like, yeah, being able to first understand like the importance of vitamin D, and not only the importance of vitamin D, but how do we get it? And then what's the process of being able to go through it? And then how do we continue it throughout our lifespan? I feel like a lot of people have this beginning and end to training. Do you guys feel the same way when it comes to that, or that from what you've seen?
I think that a lot of times people have short-term goals and they don't think about the big picture. Or, it brings me back to a Tim Ferriss quote that I love. There's no such thing as an unrealistic goal or a dream, merely an unrealistic timeline. And I think a lot of people have unrealistic timelines for their realistic dreams, and either get discouraged, or maybe they hit it and they're like, oh, great, cool. And then they can like sit back and kick feet up and, chill. And that might not be the best thing for them long term,
Right.
and I've combated that myself. I've gone down that path over and over and over again, especially when it comes to training for physical feats or races or something like that. I just decided about a year and a half ago to personally and professionally set my trajectory to an airplane taking off with a long, long runway, as opposed to trying to do the rocket ship analogy. Um, I think the rocket ship analogy works really well with people when it comes to dieting and exercise, or fitness. Like, oh, I got 6 weeks to lose 30 pounds. I'm going
Yes.
to hit it hard, right? We're going to do the detox. We're going to, reduce calories. We're going to yada, yada, yada. And, that may quote unquote work. It's not going to work in the long term. It's going to set you back in the long term. It's going to be very detrimental in the long term. And, what's the point? Why are you doing this? So let's set the trajectory to far and out to the right, and let's take our time. And so for me, then that training, that looks like I'm looking in terms of years. I've got goals I want to get to at 40, right? And I want to keep moving well at 50. And so what I do now, I don't need to push it per se. I don't need to do crazy stuff per se. I can just keep chopping at the basics and do the stuff I like to do and recover well from it and enjoy it along the way and just get better and better and better. Stay injury free, right? Which is huge for me, and just keep getting better
Yes.
without
Yes.
burning out.
Without burning out. And Coach Emily, you're good at this. You've kept a consistent grind. How were you able to? What's your take? What's your take on this? Well,
Yeah. So when working with clients and noticing things in general with myself, friends and family, we tend to be really goal focused. And once we get to this spot, this is where I'll be happiest or where I'll feel accomplished. And I forget who said it, but fairly recently I heard a quote where it's like, let's focus on enjoying, like set a goal, yes, that leads us or sets us in the right direction, but let's focus on enjoying the journey. And to me,
mm,
it's very similar to what you just said. Dave is looking at that trajectory of the takeoff of the airplane. You're going to spend most of your time there, so you might as well enjoy it. And if you're just looking for that end goal, then to me, it's like, what's the point? When you get there, you may not be, feel that sense of accomplishment, and so we might as well enjoy the journey along the way. For me specifically, in regards to labor and pregnancy, that was something, and postpartum. This is something that's been very challenging for myself. It's just such a new thing to me. And one little example is, when I've always been very fit and healthy my whole life for the majority of the time. And it's been really hard postpartum for me recovering from that. Physically, I was, sitting down and not being able to work out for months postpartum because I had a harder birth, and am still working on diastasis issues with my stomach, and that's been really hard mentally and physically. Not being able to do a regular push up or even a pull up, that's odd for me. So 1 year later, I'm still working on it, and I've realized I can't keep just looking in my mind, be like, oh, when can I do that again? When will I be able to just do that again? Basically, and I'm focused on the process and trusting that process and trying to enjoy what I can in the moment. So that's my take on it.
I
that's
love
good.
that. And how's your self-talk been through that process?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's definitely times where I have doubts, and I'm like, man, am I doing everything that I can be doing? But then I know that the little things I do day to day and the little habits that I work on, I know that I'm doing the best I can. And that's where I change the direction and be like, Emily, you're doing what you can. Not everyone's going to have a flat six pack, 2 weeks or even 2 months postpartum. And that's okay. I know I'm nourishing my body and mind as best as I can, and I know it will get better. So there's definitely like dips of self doubt, but then I turn it right around, and that helps so much. And I try and talk about it, so I spread the word, because I find when I
Mm,
look and see other mothers or other people in general sharing their struggles, it makes me feel less alone, and then it's not, I'm not like the singled out one, especially coming from, like I said, an athletic, healthy and fit background. I did for a moment feel like I was alone. And so being able to share it and see others helps a lot in changing the direction of my self talk, especially.
I had a very bad back injury in March of 2019, and it limited my ability to do the activities of daily living, which also included running and lifting and being outside and hiking, those things that I love to do. And so I can definitely identify with having those things, quote unquote, taken away from you, so to speak, and then working through the language behind what you're saying to yourself behind it. Or and when I told myself my back is F, my back is F, my back's never going to get better, yada yada yada. Um, that was a different conversation. That was a different feeling in the body. That was a different
Mm,
outcome, right? I wasn't looking at the things that I could do. I wasn't looking at the walks I could take or the fact that the pool would be a fantastic choice for me, right? I was just looking at the fact that, oh, well, I can't go run mountains right now. And when I shifted that language to my back is getting better or my back is healing or one day I will be able to return to regular physical activity again, right? Or
yeah, yeah.
whatever that was, that shifted a lot of things for me. And it made me focus on the things that I could do, which was
Exactly.
a lot of the things that are long-term trajectory stuff. Like I want to be able to go on walks when I'm 60, so I should start walking a lot more now, right? Like, okay, right? And whatever that is, a lot of times the little steps over a long period of time get us there sooner than the rabbit who sprinted out the gate, you know?
Mm,
Yeah, 100%. Instead of all those can'ts, just focusing on what you can do. And in the meantime,
Bingo.
it slows you down. I love it. Like I used to think a walk was just, I'm like, oh, how am I going to benefit from just a walk? Like I don't feel like I get a workout in from just walking. Now I'm like, I get to go on a walk. It's a nice day out. This is awesome. I feel great. And it's made a huge difference. So I love how it slows me down, puts me in the moment, and appreciates the small things.
Definitely. That's cool to hear.
it's so cool, and that's we're all on the same path here as coaches. You know, I believe we all came from a past of, hey, how hard can we drop the hammer? How fast can we get moving? And that's very prevalent in our society with fitness, right? Well, I have to outwork it. I got to make sure my heart rate gets up. I got to do 5 miles today, right? Instead of slowing down and being able to go, well, what does my body need? And then when we actually slow that down, we actually sleep better at night. We actually take time to be able to breathe or have gratitude. And our body rewards us with actually doing less of this super hard training. Not saying that we shouldn't have times of high intensity training or long training. Yet this thought process of, if I don't train super hard today, I'm not going to get my gains, or I'm not going to lose any more weight, or I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight, or I'm not going to, this repetitive type of thought process when it comes to training itself. And with that thought process, with what we're talking about, when it comes to training anything, like you were talking about, Dave, training wheels, for most people, what would be some stuff that you would suggest people should start training in realms like, hey, you guys are trying to ride your bike without the training wheels first. Let's put on the training wheels of, say, nutrition or breath work or sun exposure. What would be the things that you would say, hey, for the average person looking to get healthy, looking to increase their fitness and happiness, what would be like, hey, here's the starting training manual for life?
I had this conversation with a good buddy of mine that I actually took driver's ed with. He went to one of my best friend's high schools. We both had hair down to here, believe it or not, long, curly gold locks,
Yes.
right? 15 and a half years old, right? I get in the car with Luke Phillips. Luke called me yesterday morning and we were talking about stuff and he explained the situation. Great guy, family guy, 2 kids, owns 2 businesses, you know, uh, busy, my age, right? And the lowest hanging fruit for him and the lowest hanging fruit for almost everybody out there is sleep.
Mm.
Sleep. If we're going to talk habits, it's sleep. He's getting 6 hours a night because he's up at 4:30 to get his workout in, so he can be at the gym at 5, so he can hit it before his kids get up and be back, so that he can and he's doing all the right things. Uh, there are times that he could sneak in maybe a micro nap or maybe even a full sleep cycle nap, on a weekend. There are times where he's going to bed at 10, but hey, my kids get to sleep pretty early. I could go to sleep at 9. It's like, cool. Well, let's start there for the next 2 weeks and see what that looks like, right? Um, Along those lines, most people drink more coffee than they do water. And so reducing the amount of coffee and reducing the amount of alcohol on a weekly basis and increasing the amount of water is one of the best ways to really up your health and how you feel on a regular basis through a variety of factors. Uh, those two things alone, or those multiple things alone, would be a great place for people to start training, right? And you can, there's devices that track your sleep. Like Whoop is a great thing for that, right? Yeah, heck yeah, and there are, you could write down how many drinks you have every week. You can write down how many of these, these little 3-gallon, or what is this, 1 liter things you have, right? I don't know where I got 3 gallons from that, but
Dude, you're going in. You're going full in. Now we got a
totally
whole
going
another
in.
message,
Full
right? We got
blast,
to talk
right?
about.
Exactly. So drink your water, get your sleep, and those are great places to train and start.
Coach Emily, do you agree?
Yes, 100%. Sleep is always my first and foremost. Like you said, low-hanging fruit. I think it's hard for people to put their ego and pride aside and focus on the small, simple things. They're so overlooked. And I think there's expectations in our culture to accomplish, like I was mentioned before, the hard-hitting workout or whatever the other harder or more intense thing is. But it's the simple, simple daily things that have such a big effect. And you have to be able to set that aside, not care about what anyone else thinks, even yourself maybe, and put the daily small habit hard work in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I think you nailed it on the head too. I mean, we talk about this. I mean, our last 2 podcasts, Dave, were literally what you just said. It was sleep and water. Those are the 2 things that we literally just got done talking about. And we spent an entire hour talking about it, and, to both your guys' points, another thing we talk about is being able, and we're going to dive into this, guys, because this is really important work that Dave does, which is story work. And being able to go, hey, why can't you go to bed earlier? Why do you feel like you need to be up early? Tell me why you're not able to stop in the middle of the day and tell your boss or your customers or the people underneath you, hey, I'm taking an hour to go take a walk, to take a nap, to work out. We have this pressure that we put on ourselves via society, via the imposter inside us, that really starts twisting our arm. And when we're talking about, we just said, guys, low-hanging fruit. Sleep, literally, we just had a client who just emailed us today about, I had her write some story workout, some language work, just a journal of what her day was like. And it was pure chaos. And then would she write the next day, like the following today, this morning? Oh yeah, last night I got 5 hours, and then today I got 7 hours and 45 minutes. I'm feeling much better. Mind's better, clearer. I feel more energized. We're like, what? Low hanging fruit, right? Yeah. And so, I want us to dive into that, that we've touched on that, Dave, and we talk about it here on Proclivity, the importance of language and story work. Yet, let's break it down. You have your Unlifted shirt on right now. If you guys are watching live, Unlifted is the coaching course that Dave and I have gone through. Dave is a level 3 Unlifted coach. And so he knows the language game inside and out. And you guys know with Proclivity, our language is the base of our pyramid when it comes to health. So Dave, tell the people, and you specifically work on story work. What is story work, and how does this help people be able to train for life when it comes to their health and their wellness? We're just talking about words, right? How's that going to help me get more fit or lose weight or, sleep better?
How we speak to ourselves and other people and how we breathe is the foundation of our reality, right? Because those two things affect the stories we tell ourselves, and those stories we tell ourselves end up becoming that reality. It's our perception of things. So I have been I've been in the health coaching business for 6 or 7 years. I've been, even before that, I coached collegiately, strength and conditioning coach at a D1 school. Been involved in this type of stuff for a long time. Had a business and still do healthy holistic habits. I still coach a lot of this stuff that you guys talk about. And up until 2017, I was rather clueless as far as how much words really meant. Like I was on board with the positive movement stuff. I was on board with intentions and goal setting, right? Like I've got Google Drive stuff from 2011, like where I got my goals, and yet, like I've been doing that for a while, right?
Right.
Positivity, yeah, right. Um, I was going through a potential career transition. I had I was about 6 months out of a breakup from a 5 year relationship, the one I thought was the one at the time, right? Um, and I was contemplating doing a 50-mile ultra marathon when the farthest I'd run was 15 miles, and I was ill prepared and I was freaking out, right? And Mark England, co-founder of both Procabulary and Enlifted, met him a couple months earlier at a networking event. We had a great conversation, got lunch a couple times since at a Thai place downtown Richmond. Great spot. I'll take you to it.
Yes, you will.
Uh, yes, I will. He, I start telling him the stuff that's going on, and he says, "Why don't we hop on a call next week? I'll send you a Google document, write some stuff out, and we'll talk about it." Right. So I did, and fast forward before I fast forward, it helped tremendously, right? I First of all, writing the stuff down, getting really clear about what I was afraid of, getting really clear about what I actually wanted, um, getting it out of my head that the what if scenario of what if I can't finish the race, right?
That's right.
What if I get hurt, right? Like what if we raise this money for charity and then like I quit on mile 32, like like that's gonna be really terrible, right?
Right, right.
All that stuff. Um, I was able to get that out of my head, and it helped create so much space to where the decisions and the next steps moving forward were very clear,
Mm.
right? So that's my first intro into this stuff. In 2018, I took a course with Brandon Powell, who does Wim Hof breath work, Mike Bledsoe of former Barbell Shrugged and now Strong Coach and Training Camp for the Soul, and then Mark. They did a course called Flow Stated in Richmond, and that was another just mind-blowing moment of, wow, words really matter, right? Words really matter. Um, in 2019, I helped them launch Enlifted at Paleo FX, which was really cool to see the beginnings of what this turned out to be. And then I moved to Mexico about 2 weeks before COVID hit to open a health and wellness retreat. COVID hit. I moved back. My dreams just crumpled and folded
Yeah.
in front of my hand, in
Yeah.
my hands, in front of my face, and I signed up for level one. And level one and lifted is mostly personal development, sold as professional development, right? You learn all the tools of how to story work, and you deal with your story first. And I
Mm-hmm.
realized that my entire life, I had, the devil on one shoulder, that uh, which was me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I talk shit to myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I used to be very mean and or degrading, or like, why would you do that? I can't believe you did this, or oh God, you remember this, or you blah 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 blank blank blank, right?
Yeah.
um, I beat myself up over stuff, and I was able to learn how to change that conversation from conversation that was conflicting and tearing me down and holding me back into conversation and language and words that built me up and moved me forward. And I was very clear on what I wanted to create. And when I saw the impact it had on me, my peers, and then when I started to do a couple sessions with clients, my practice shifted over a month or two from 90% healthy holistic habits and sort of doing story work because this new thing to past 18 months have been 90% story work, and it's all I want to do is coach
Mm-hmm.
and work people, work through people's perceived problems, right? Work through people's opportunities with them, um, because it is profound and it is the foundation of our realities.
It is 100%. And being able to look that, one of the quotes, right, that Mark uses, if you laugh at the devil, he'll flee, right, is you guys, trauma happens when we connect emotion to an event, and then we stuff it in the very back of our mind. And what Dave's talking about is that when we start actually allowing that to come out, pen to paper, that we start pulling out what the devil wants us to keep pressed back in the darkness, where things fester and grow and get ugly. And what Dave does is he pulls it out with being able to say, hey, let's put it down on paper. Let's name the big ugly monster that you've created. And then let's actually seek and search for the evidence that is that actually something that is even relatively true, or is it false? And I'm very interested, Dave. What's the type of results that you see with people? And I want to go specifically in this direction physically when they start allowing that energy to flow, when they start getting their stories out. Do you start seeing a change in people physically?
Yes, in many ways. I mean, part of what the storybook process does is it highlights physiologically within your body, will shine a light on when things are true, when you say something that's true, or when you say something that feels good for you. Like, okay, cool, what does that feel like? Right? Like, okay, yeah, I feel like nice and warm and fuzzy. I'm pretty calm. My breath is nice and low, right? I've got positive mental imagery, like whatever that is, right? But we contrast that with when you think about that thing that happened when you were 12, or when you think about your job that you freaking hate, with the boss you freaking hate that just sucks your soul, right? When you think of, when you look at yourself in the mirror maybe and you're like, oh man, I used to be blank, or I'll
Mm,
get back to why, right? Like those conversations are going to facilitate a physiological response that's different from I love myself. I am worthy. Um, you know, I got this. I am
mm-hmm,
strong. I'm healthy. Right.
mm-hmm.
And it's highlighting that physiological response. It's so valuable for people because then they start to see in their daily lives, like, oh, wow, when my heart rate jacks up real quick and I get really hot, like, and, I just start to like tap and my stomach starts to churn. That's from emotions. That's from
Yes.
words. That's from thoughts and stories, not it's not the person that cut you off in traffic. It's how you responded to the person that cut you off in traffic, right? And in between that stimulus and response is a space, right? And story work affects people physically by highlighting how their breath and their words affect them physically. And then they can take those tools and apply them to daily life, i.e., reduce stress, i.e.,
Mm-hmm.
wow, now cortisol drops and testosterone raises. And, now we can get better sleep because we're not thinking about that damn thing again, right? And now we're
Yes.
actually getting restful sleep and, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, things snowball and healthy habits, or rather like healthy, the health math is weird. It's not 1 + 1 + 1 = 3, right? It's
Right.
it's you add things that are good for you and you take things away that are bad, and it ends up, 10xing things oftentimes. I mean, it's just compounding results over time. Um, and Storywork can clear space quick,
Yes.
quick.
Yes.
And then it's up to you on what you want to fill it with, right? And we can use Storywork to be creative and push forward, but it creates that space.
I mean, yes. You're talking to also an unlifted coach. This is what we do in Proclivity. And, Coach Emily, I'm going to bring you into this because, yes, Dave and I, right, we love the language game. How has this affected you? Because we've worked together in Storywork, and also your clients, of just working the language and working some stories. I've seen you work it yourself, and I've also seen you work it with other clients. What's the type of results that you've seen as a nutrition coach that has a background in that has some experience in language and story work? What have you seen?
Yeah. So similar to you, Dave, I was mostly focused on nutrition, health, habits, those kind of things, up until early this year when I started talking with Joel. And as I had, each session after with Joel, talking to him about this language work and mindset piece, every single time I was like, man, all of my clients can benefit way more if we implemented even just a piece of this, because I can tell them all the right things to do for nutrition. But are they actually going to follow through with it? And is it going to last a long time? So I have seen a huge difference in not only myself, but with all of my clients in working with this. And this is exactly why we created Proclivity, because I found it to be so important. And as you said, the foundation before you do anything else. Because if you want to set long-term habits, there's a reason you weren't doing them before. We know eat more veggies, we know get more sleep, these things, right? But what's holding us back? Usually it's something in our mindset. And I find that to be so helpful in creating new and long-lasting habits.
Nailing it, nailing it, nailing it. I can't stress you guys, if you're listening right now, if you, first and foremost, if you're not following Enlifted Coaches, head over to the Instagram, follow them. If you're not following Dave Robinson on Instagram, which your handle is what?
At Get Strapped, Stay Strapped.
Yes, it is. I love it. I love it. You guys want to start tuning into this, because there's a lot of talk about mindset, yet there's a difference between the why and the how. And that's what coaches like who you're listening to right now, like Dave, he will teach you the how. How do you get to that affirmation that sticks? There's a how process. It's not just, well, why? Why should I have an affirmation? Well, it's going to make you feel better. Well, that doesn't carry as much weight as, how are we going to create that? How is it going to make you feel better? And that's what story work does. And when we allow that energy to start flowing, personally, from what I have found with myself, that with my clients, I have gotten, with our clients, Emily and I's, we have gotten people who will lose 20, 30 pounds, and we'll say, how hard was that? And they go, it was the easiest thing I've ever done. Because we started changing what the mind was focusing on. We got them to go in a different direction than where they were heading. And that's the beauty, and this is why we're talking about training for life. Yes, are there pieces and components such as sunlight exposure and water and sleep that are so vital? Yet if we're not giving us the space to be able to get there, then we have the keys, but we don't know where the car is. And that's what Dave does here. And it's, dude, I'm just so pumped that people are getting an opportunity to hear it from someone else other than us, and what you do. Super cool, super freaking cool.
I appreciate the opportunity, y'all. I really do. And on affirmations, I've had a couple affirmations at a couple different points in my life changed my life, period. Um, I love myself, changed my life, started everything. Go all the way got me to make some major big time decisions and go all the way. I had it written on my bathroom mirror for about a year and a half,
Yes.
right? The past year and a half has been I am ease. I am ease. The tagline to my previous company was grind on. And that obviously led me down a path of grinding 24/7, right? Because that's all I said. All right, later, man. All right, man, grind on, right? Like, so then I'd go home and grind, right? And we're talking about sleep, we're talking about habits, talking about all those things. You got to work hard, and there's the other side of the puzzle. The pendulum will swing the other way, right? So I am ease has been my mantra, my affirmation, and you're right. Having the ability to find one that actually hits, right? Like this is mine, right? Like right? Anybody can use any of these, right? Especially if it hits you like it hit me, but I'd encourage you to find one that really makes you feel the way that you want to feel and say it all day, every day.
Well, and it was the process too, right, Dave, of getting there. It wasn't like it
Got
just
to get
popped
there.
into your head, like you were just like, grind on. Like there was a process of you thinking through it, talking it out, writing it out. And this is what a story coach does for you guys is that
It's
if those,
whittling it down.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
it's whittling it down to be able to be the most potent sentence possible. So, like if you guys were watching live, Dave put his hand to his chest, right? And we do that when it's like, we're doing that because it's like, wow, that hit me in the heart, the soul. And when we find something like that, it literally changes us. Y'all, like, I can't express enough that when you find that affirmation by going through some story work and unwinding some stuff, all of a sudden, that person that you've always said that you were, poof, disappears. And this new superhero comes up in front of you. And you see this image of yourself completely different. And all of a sudden, your mind shifts and goes, we seek for all things that prove that this is the true Dave. This is the true Joel. This is the true Emily. And before we know it, we're making all the decisions that create that powerful person due to the fact that, like Dave said, we whittled it down, we found the PowerPoint, and we hit it hard. Now all of a sudden, those things that we talked about in terms of training for life, those are just all things that continue to lift us. They supercharge us. Yet it started with creating that right picture.
Bingo.
Freaking bingo. Coach Emily, you getting fired up?
Oh yeah, this has been a great conversation. I love it.
Freaking love it. I love this. So, Dave, we always leave our listeners with 3 things, right? And it's totally up to you. But for people that are trying to work in terms of training for life or their story work, what would you say the 3 things are that they can start doing today that's really going to start moving the needle for them? Is it story work? Is it language affirmations? Is it, sunshine or water? What are the 3 things that you could say, hey, before anything, bank, do this?
Get more sleep. Write down your fears. And write down your perfect day 3 years from now.
Emily,
Yeah.
you've done that before, huh?
Oh yeah. Excuse my dog in the background, but yes, those are things that I, especially the one about fears, have not done that prior to you. So it's a good one.
Those are huge ones, Dave. You caught me on the side with that. I didn't know you were going to go that way. That's some good stuff. And so specifically when it comes to fears, how do you suggest writing out those fears? Is it sit down, write it for 5 minutes? Is it your top 3 fears? How would people write out their fears?
You could do it. Both of those ways are great ways to do it. You could do a top 10 list, right? You could set a timer for 5 minutes or 15 minutes, or just brainstorm, right? You could ask yourself a question. What if I do this thing that I am afraid of, right? Or what if I
Mm-hmm.
don't do this thing I'm afraid of? What if I leave my job? What if I don't leave my job? What if I leave the relationship? What if I don't leave the relationship? What if I, get sick? What if I, you know, like whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the simple act of writing those things down, especially if it's something that's actually bothering you, right?
Yeah.
Like you're actually thinking about these things. It's taking up time, energy, space, and otherwise in your mind and body. And getting the things that are negative energy out of you and on paper is huge, because those are the
Yes.
things that affect us in that physiological way that we talked about earlier that a lot of us don't like. Presents as frustration or irritability or fear, or rather anger or anxiety or whatever it is, right?
Right.
So getting that stuff out and then getting us focused on that long-term trajectory, right? It's not a 90-day goal. It's not a by the end of the year, or what am I doing this month or this week, or my to-do list. It's what life do I want to live, i.e., what's my perfect day look like in 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a long enough time for you to make some pretty key changes and rock and roll on some things that would be really beneficial for a while. And like, it's fun to dream in that time frame, and happens like that. And a lot of the things that you're doing now on a regular basis can and will affect what goes on in that 3 year time frame. And so, um, in my experience, personally and professionally, that's been a great exercise to return back to once a quarter, twice a year. Write down your fears, write down your perfect day in 3 years, and always try to get a little bit more sleep.
Mm. You heard it from the man, the myth, legend himself, Dave Robinson. Dude, it's been a absolute pleasure having you on the show. That, like I told you guys, we were going to bounce around, and you're going to want to listen to this one again, because there's stuff that you missed. Go back, listen to it again. There's a lot of great tidbits in there. Dave, how do people get a hold of you, and what can you do to help them?
Awesome. You can find me at workyourstories.com. Work Your Stories. And I do one-on-one coaching with people. Period. I love coaching people. I love sitting across from someone over Zoom, or this cool guest eCam setup, which I'm a fan of.
Yeah,
I might have to start looking at this.
dude.
But no, I love getting on a Google Doc with somebody and working through things with them. And so that's what I do. That's what I do professionally. That's what I do for full time. I love it, and I'm going to do it for a long, long, long time. So workyourstories.com and schedule a call with me. We'll chat it out.
And do you do a free consultation or clarity call that if people
Yep.
are curious?
Yep. 100%. 100%. And you can also shoot me a message on Instagram. You can send me an email. Workyourstories@gmail.com works great. I love getting random emails from podcasts. It's so cool. Having people that listen to such and such, and they're like, "Yo, I heard you on blank." Like, XYZ. Like, ask me a question. I'll respond. So, um, yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Any of those spots, all of those spots.
There it is, you guys. If you guys are interested in being able to work those stories, and those stories that are really holding you back, right? It could be professionally, personally, emotionally, so on and so forth. Reach out to Dave. I'm going to include all the different links in the show notes below. So just take a look. You'll be able to get connected with him. Coach Emily, what'd you think about today?
Loved it. Thank you so much, Dave, for again being here and providing another view on all the work that we love here as well at Proclivity. Can't wait to keep talking with you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that's it for this show, episode 41, Training for Life. We'll be back next week for episode 42. Make sure to follow the Proclivity Podcast, like, subscribe, and share with people who are also trying to live having a healthier body and happier life. You guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.